how we work with students and how we work with kids and what they're learning in school as opposed to what they need to be learning for life.
What do you think our future generation of young people are missing in their educational learning? Meet Renee Vee, a dedicated speech pathologist that worked in the public education system for many years. Realizing that kids and teens aren't getting the life tools they need, Renee is creating change with Mighty Minds Academy, an online powerful program that allows these young minds to improve their communication skills. Today, we have Renee Vee, an amazing, amazing woman that is creating change in her corner of the world. Renee, tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are.
So I am a mom and a speech pathologist for 23 years. And over the years, I'd made a decision that I wanted to start pouring into personal development. And I thought that would better me as a mom and better me as a speech therapist for my students. And what I found was what I was learning was really resonating with me with how I was treating the students that I was working with and how I help change their programming through, them learning new articulation skills, them learning new language skills. And I was noticing a lot of parallels with what I was learning about mindset in these personal development programs that was really making me realize that I was practicing this stuff with these students already and creating change in that way. But the concepts I was learning, I said, wow, why can't I work with my children's mindset as well in the same fashion? And I started doing that with my students, and I started seeing a lot of positive change. So when we talk about their minds, they understand a little bit more about the why of what we're doing to try and improve their language and communication skills.
Tell us a little bit about your background, where you got started. You were a speech pathologist in the public school system?
Yes, on Long Island and then in Pennsylvania. So I worked for like 13 years on Long Island, and then I moved my family to Pennsylvania and continued in a new school. And it really was a big change for me at that time. I was excited to start over in a new, refresh a little bit. And I had to learn a lot of new programs and IEP systems and things like that. It took a while, but yeah, I've been working in schools for 23 years.
What even got you interested in speech pathology?
Ooh, I was 16 and I babysat a child in my neighborhood who had severe autism. And I was intrigued by her. I didn't understand what it was. I mean, we're talking a long time ago before it became what it is now. It wasn't as known back then, but I remember her speech therapist coming to the house and I was watching what they were doing. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. Like, she's really going to give this child a pathway. She was nonverbal, a pathway to communicate. How powerful is that? So as time went on, I knew I wanted to work in education. My mom's an educator, my sister's in education, and I knew I wanted to work with kids in that capacity, but didn't really want to be a teacher. So I was like, well, and I remembered what that lady was doing. And I was like, what was she? And I called the mom and she said that was her speech therapist. And I was like, oh, let me look into that. So I did. And I started my schooling, at Penn State. And then I graduated there and moved on to NYU for my master's, and I worked ever since. So it worked out the best of ways, and I love what I do.
What did you find that was gratifying, and what did you find that wasn't so gratifying as you looked around?
So what I found gratifying was the students I was working with, especially in New York. I worked in Elmont, which is it's a lovely area, but a lot of immigrants. So a lot of our kids not only had speech delays, but they also were second language learners. So there was a lot of carryover between the ELL teacher, who was the English as a second language teacher, and speech therapist. So really what we were doing was finding out how to really work the best way for these kids, because they did come from families that speak other languages. So it was a little bit challenging, But what I found was that they really loved coming to school. And when they came to see me, they were so excited and so ready to work. And they were like a little needy. So I felt good about being able to be a role model for them. What I didn't find as gratifying was a lot of what I was dealing with was things that I couldn't control that I should have been in control of, as far as, qualifying students for the service. It was a lot of control from the top on who got what and how many times. And sometimes the groups I was working with were completely inappropriate, but my hands were tied. I couldn't put them in a different way because I was being told what to do. So that was really disheartening. It kind of removed my professionalism in my craft of what I thought was best. So you're kind of fighting with that. When I moved to Pennsylvania and started there, it all changed. So when I moved to the district in Pennsylvania, it was the polar opposite of that. So it was two extremes of, now I was in charge of my student services and how much they needed. And did they need an individual session? Did they need a group session? And I had that control, and it made me feel better about what I was doing because I felt like I could do the best I could do with what I had.
What made you segue to becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, like I mentioned, the personal development that I invested in for myself really opened my eyes and raised my awareness as to how we work with students and how we work with kids and what they're learning in school as opposed to what they need to be learning for life. And that's a lot of what I am now really passionate about is not only should they be learning about history and math and English, but they should be learning about their mind and how it works and how their thoughts affect their feelings, affect their actions, and affect their results. And it's all scientifically backed. I mean, this is going years and years of study in this field where we're understanding that in school that the curriculum is what it is, but sometimes our kids are leaving school and not knowing anything about themselves. They know everything about the wars and people that, ran the country, but they don't know much about themselves. And we're seeing now like a very big jump in mental illness, anxiety and frustration and depression. And my opinion of it is, well, if they don't know who they are or what they want, how are they supposed to make choices as adults as to what they want to do for a career or who they want to attract as a partner? They don't know. So it's really confusing. And sometimes they're following programming that they didn't even choose it. They're programming from the environment, their families, the news, all that noise out there affects how our kids are functioning in life. And a lot of times it doesn't work that way because they don't know who they are or what they want. So if they're hearing a lot of negativity from places, well, they're going to adopt that. So what we want to do is really make sure that our kids are being taught the power of their thoughts, how their mind works, about confidence, about excelling in a skill, finding their passion, things like that aren't proactively being taught in schools right now.
When you talk about kids, are you talking about high school, public school, kindergarten, kids on a spectrum that might go to a special school?
I'd like to say that when I first started this business, my vision was to really work with young students, because when they're young, Terry, their minds are wide open. They accept a lot more. They don't have a lot of pushback because they're learning from their teachers. And that's what we've been taught, right? Learn from your teacher. But when it comes down to it, I did work with that population of young kids. And for me, I didn't think I was hitting it the right way with them. But when I worked with teenagers, I felt like a lot more of that feedback and the willingness, the acceptability of trying to be better every day and understanding that maturity-wise, that these are things they should be aware of. And this is how you handle, conflict. And this is how you build resilience. And this is how we problem solve. And I think that's where my passion lies right now. But I also have a strong, strong passion for children that have special needs. And I can adapt a lot of what I do. And I have adapted it for students of different intellectual levels. And it's a beautiful way of learning because it's the way all of our kids learn is through spaced repetition. So we learn our language through spaced repetition. We learn how to eat. We learn how to drink. So when we consistently expose our students to really good information over and over, it reprograms their mind. So what happens before might not be working for them, but when they start, instilling thoughts of optimism, when they're able to really understand that they can be, do, and have whatever they want. They just have to set goals. Things like that I felt were really important, especially for those teenagers.
You work with primarily teenagers.
I feel like that age group is really a great group to really be effective.
Tell us a little bit about Mighty Minds Academy, because that's what we're talking about here. Mighty Minds Academy is about really life skills.
I call it like the School of You or Generation Now curriculum, because our kids' needs are changing. I mean, the whole entire world changed after the pandemic, and we need to keep up with this. We need to evolve in what our kids are learning. That was a really hard period of time for a lot of families. Why? Because they didn't have the resiliency skills. They were having a lot of fear during that time. And when you have a lot of fear, you're not functioning well. The amount of stress that was happening is really affected people. And we still won't know the effects of all of it for a while. But in that time, you really discover what's important for our kids. And I remember teachers with my kids saying like, well, they need to do this, this, and this. I said, no, they need to be happy right now. They need to understand that they need to feel safe. And I'm not worried about their academics right now. I'm not. And I told our teachers that. I said, my daughter has an IEP. And I was like, I am not worried about the numbers on this document. I'm not worried about their grades. I'm worried that they are feeling okay, feeling safe, feeling secure, getting a little bit of social interaction with their friends, in a safe way. And so as I was developing these programs, I have 3 major programs. Each are 6 topics each. So I have 18 topics that I teach on, along with a lot of resources and information to really reinforce the concepts that kids are learning. And it really boils down to understanding growth mindset and what that is. That's where I start, because that's really the basis for everything. If you're not open to learning, you're not going to learn. It's very simple. But even understanding their confidence and how it works and how to build confidence. A lot of our kids, they're being exposed to all the social media and what's on the news, and their parents, if their parents stress out about things, our kids pick up on that. So we need to build an armor around them so they really can understand that they don't need to fall victim to fear and things like that. If they have a strong mindset and understand what they want, that's what they do. So my programs are online. It's an online platform accessible with a code, and you log on and you can do your coursework. And then I meet with the families or the students or whoever is in the program once a week. And we talk about the concepts.
What are some of the concepts that you feel really are lacking in kids, teenagers, that you provide with your courses?
So self-worth is pretty much the first thing that I think is, if our kids don't feel worthy from whatever has caused them to feel unworthy, we need to fix that, because that's where we're seeing the decline in mental wellness, where people are not feeling worthy of what they want to do or who they want to be. And it's upsetting to them that they're not getting support, right? So we have to understand that every decision we make in our lives has to please us, because the outside world doesn't exist, right? You're going to hear opinions. I mean, gosh, I'm sure you've heard people say, oh, why are you starting a podcast? And, the naysayers are more common than positive, support. So our kids don't understand that it's in their power to say, well, if you don't appreciate it, that's okay, but I'm going to continue on my path because this is the way I want to go. So they feel guilted or peer pressured into whatever it is going on, and maybe not feeling it. I was that kid, I was like, oh, I'm going to take dance. Oh, you said it's not cool. Okay, I don't want to dance anymore. So we let other people's opinions become facts, and they're not. I think what's really important is the self-worth, the self-confidence, the resiliency, understanding their emotional intelligence, and how it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to feel frustrated. But what are we doing with those feelings when we're feeling them? We don't want to wallow in them and sit there and crawl into a hole, right? There's strategies to make yourself feel better, to get out of that little, spot that you're feeling. We all feel these feelings. But a lot of people say, well, don't be sad, or don't do that. You're just depressed. Don't say you're depressed. Well, no, maybe you're feeling that way. And it's completely validated. We're human. But I think our kids need to know that that's okay. and the best way to strategize to get out of that. What makes you tick? What makes you happy? And you do a little bit of that, and it could change your whole day.
I love this concept because it is so needed, so needed. I don't know if schools are ever going to pick up these types of courses to help kids. And I wonder if a lot of schools may think, well, they'll get that at home. You know, that's for the home to do, not for us at school. What is the reaction to schools, to people you speak to about these programs?
There's a lot of excitement around it, a lot of like awakening around it. When I talk about what I think is important for our kids to learn, people's ears perk up, and they always want to learn more. But, to make change, we have to be dedicated to it and maybe spend a little money to help our kids. So, bringing in people like me, and I have a whole group of people that we're all kind of on the same mission, helping each other and working together to try and shift this paradigm to having our kids learn more about social and emotional learning, have them learn about these things. And it could just be supplementary to their regular education. That's okay. I prefer it to be taught in the schools during the day. And they have social emotional learning programs. They're just not effective because it's one class and then they're not practicing, right, Terry? Everything we want to get better at, we have to practice. So when we're exposed to it and they say, oh, this sounds great. This sounds great. And then you leave and you don't practice it. It's like going to a conference and not taking all of that goodness and doing something with it. So the more we expose and expose and expose, we're going to see a lot of positive change in schools because a lot of these kids have behavioral issues that aren't being solved in the way that we could cut it completely with just some mindset work and allowing a child to maybe not be okay one day. Well, what are we doing with this? We're not going to punish them. Let's teach them a better way. We won't have all the problems they're having.
This is so innovative, really, and so necessary today when you have all this social media and you have all of this, all of a sudden young people committing suicide and mental health, and how they feel, a regular person looking at these glamorous people on social media and looking at themselves and their bodies and critiquing themselves based on nothing.
Based on society.
Right, exactly. I mean, based on what society tells them.
Right.
Which is artificial.
It is. And we had that when we were young too, Terry. We had that, but we didn't have it right in front of us, like all the time, day, night, doesn't matter. You have constant access to this now. And we have to evolve with it, Terry. We can't shut it down. It's not shut it downable. So I think if we arm our kids with that, stop looking at these people on the internet. A lot of this is fake. It's not real life. So enjoy it, but don't take it home with you and say, oh, I don't look like that model, or I'm not this influencer, or whatever these kids are aspiring to be anymore on TikTok or whatever. It's not real. And there are people that are having success with it, but it's not something that they should take and compare themselves to. It's not even comparable.
There wasn't social media when I was growing up.
No, me either.
Please don't go away. More to come. This episode is brought to you by Try Coaching. Joseph Campbell quotes, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek." What limiting beliefs are holding you back from reaching your successes? Having 8 decades of life and business experience, wisdom, and coaching hundreds of clients, why not tap into my knowledge to help you reach that treasure that you are seeking? What are you waiting for? Please reach out and let's start a conversation. So I do understand, and yes, going to school and looking at everyone else, and we all do that. And when you don't have or have been taught values and self-worth and self-confidence, and you're worthy and you're valuable and you're good enough as a foundation, which I would say, I don't know, I'm going out on a limb here, most people don't have, then it becomes very shaky territory. So having the type of programs you have are more than added value and an added bonus. It's like life instilling, if you will, for these people. And you go to schools, or is that primarily how you work with people, by going to schools?
So not now. The plan is to eventually branch out and be able to get into the schools. I did work with one school, but I worked with the staff. I didn't work with the students, which was really cool to see because a lot of our teachers are struggling, and I was happy to provide a little bit of information that they could apply to their day, because I know that they have the stuff piled onto the desk, right? It's always something. So it was really fun to be able to see their perspective and how they were feeling, and be able to give them the strategies to really build their confidence and resilience, even just within, the confines of the school, and how we could create change with how they're feeling, because they're feeling the stress, right? The pandemic, we could talk about it for hours. It was awful for them. It was awful for a lot of people, but teachers in particular had it really difficult during that time. They had masks on, they had the screens up, they had little first graders sitting in the room. They can't even talk to their friends. It was awful. It was really sad to see. But I always felt so badly for the teacher because they're on the computer with one student. It was chaos. It was chaos. And without feeling like I can get through something like this, if I'm constantly stressed out, then your body's going to break down and you're going to get sick. So I did work with schools in that sense. I'm now just an online platform. So everything we do is online. So it's easily accessible for anyone, anywhere, if they want to participate. I meet on Zoom with people to have these discussions, because it'd just be difficult to be everywhere at once. I have kids and, all this stuff that I can't travel everywhere right now, but eventually I would love to.
So tell us a little bit about when you work with these kids, when you go into working with them, and when you come out, what do you see as a major difference?
So the really cool thing I love to see is when there's realizations made that weren't there before. So whether we talk about self-image, which is how you view yourself and how you think others view you. When I do the one activity with, especially the girls really like this, it's understanding that if you admire somebody, so if you admire a friend or even a stranger on the internet, what is it about them that you admire? And when they actually sit down and write these things down, it opens up their eyes to the qualities that they want to display. Because if you are really loving that this person's super generous, or really loving that this girl is really confident and fun, well, that's within you too. We just need to bring it out. And you're not copying that person, you're emulating them. And there's a difference. There's a difference between admiring and being inspired, and comparing and copying. It's very different. I would be hugely happy for somebody to say, you know what, Renee, I really feel like I love this, this, and this about you, and I want to be like that too. There's no better compliment to that. But when our kids actually realize, like, Susie over here has all these things, well, what about her do you like? Write it down and be it until you become it. Be confident, be generous, be fun, and be that person. Because the more you're that person, the more you are that person. You just need to put that into practice and not put the boundaries up. Don't let people tell you any differently. And I think that's a struggle for all of us, is the naysayers. And we were born positive, but we become negative through our programming. And it's sad because most of our thoughts are negative. Why? Right? I mean, if you think about it, why are we our own worst enemy? Why are we nitpicking ourselves? And if we're doing it as adults, imagine what these kids are doing.
Yeah, the mind is a very interesting piece of machinery.
It's the most complex on earth.
It's the first computer, actually.
It is.
Because it holds everything. And you're not born with all of this chatter and this naysaying. It's what gets picked up from early on that you can develop yourself. What do you see? What are you surrounded by? Family, friends. And maybe today parents are more cognizant and aware of how you talk because it's out there more. And how kids are brought up is how they become.
Unless they choose to change it.
Right. And it's very difficult for young kids to understand the difference between that mind or the gremlins, if you will, or the ego or saboteurs, if you will, to who they are, because that is always there. And I love this. Feels like this is your purpose. This is your mission.
It is.
How does this feed your soul? What does it do for you?
I think because it's made a huge impact on my life, learning these types of concepts and how I think and how I react to things has changed monumentally. I mean, even within my own little family. And I see a lot of the effects of the work I've put in for myself on my family. And that to me is reward in and of itself. So if I'm able to help my family, I mean, not even directly, just from how I behave and how I'm speaking and how I'm handling stressful situations, how I handled that my plane was canceled today. I was like, okay, what's next? We got to book a hotel. Like, building that resilience, because being upset about something doesn't help anything, nothing.
Right.
And in fact, it can prevent you from making smart decisions because you're upset about something that you have no control over. Well, what we do have control over is our thoughts. 100%. Our thought process is under our control. No one can affect that. We allow them to. So I think when I gift those that go through my program with these, it's like ammunition, right? It's like, oh, let me build your armory up. I want you to have all the tools in your toolbox to be able to handle whatever comes your way, because stuff is going to come your way that you're going to not like or not know how to handle. Well, if you're solid within yourself, you have better problem solving skills. You have better, understanding of your emotions and how to handle them. And it just makes life better. So for me, I love to see that where kids actually are like, wait, I'm having a bad thought. I'm very aware of it now. So I'm going to change the narrative. But awareness is number one. If they're not aware, how can they change?
This is so powerful. Really so powerful and so needed. How can people get in touch with you? If my audience is listening and they say, wow, I want to know more about this.
Yeah, well, I'm always open to a call. I love chatting with people about what I do and how I feel like I could be of value to them and their family. So I think the best way would be at my personal email, not the business email, because a lot of junk gets put in there. So Renee at reneevee.com. So it's Renee, RENEE at RENEEVEE.com. And that's my email. And I would love for anybody who's listening that wants to talk more about this, we can hop on a call and chat further about it and see how we can help each other.
I definitely agree. I think there is nothing more that you can give than to help this younger generation gain the skills that took me 7 years in analysis to learn, quite frankly, at a young age, because they absorb it and it changed their life completely. So powerful and so needed. Renee, this has been wonderful. What are one or two nuggets that you can leave us with for anyone listening?
The greatest change in my life occurred when I got a mentor. And mentors can look differently. There can be coach mentors, like a basketball coach or somebody that is doing or can teach you things and crunch that time, right, Terry? Like we took us a while to learn this stuff. But if they're exposed by a mentor or a coach very early on, it could change the whole game. And they can follow the coach or the mentor into whatever they desire based on what they desire. So, understanding the power of having a human, it doesn't need to be your parents, because oftentimes our parents aren't the ones that are going to give us these tools. If they are, great. But if they haven't been exposed to it, they can't give what they don't have. So it's really important. Like me as a parent, I'm always looking to get my kids guidance in the right way, because my son plays basketball. I can't teach him basketball skills. He needs to go and be exposed to coaches and other players that have gone where he wants to go. And so I think the power of having mentorship or a coach, no matter how young you are, we spend all this money on gymnastics and camp for kids, but so we should be channeling some of that funding towards building up their mindset, because it's really the basis of everything. If you have a great mindset, you're going to be good at whatever you want to do. So whether it be sports or being a writer or what, it doesn't matter. But that underlying foundational skill is super important. So I think mentorship is one nugget that I like to give out. And you and I both have a mentor. I mean, this is how we met. So even the power of the connection and the network is so important. That will open up doors that people don't even realize will open for them when they are exposing themselves to others that are in the same kind of space that they are. And I always felt like a black sheep in the schools, because I was always like, why are we doing this? This doesn't make any sense. Even when I was in high school, I didn't understand why I was learning what I was learning. I knew back then, I was like, this is like, why do I need to know this? So I think it's important, and we're not going to climb that mountain now with the schools, but at least if we could supplement, that would be great. And my other nugget would be aware of your thoughts and intentionally put good thoughts in your mind, because when we don't, that's how we get sick. So understanding the power of our thoughts, it can change everything.
Amen. And you are absolutely on target. As I said, as a coach, I work with clients all the time on looking inside, seeing what's going on, and then having them figure out how to shift their mindset. Without that, people become successful, but they don't feel it.
Exactly.
They don't celebrate it. So there is so much that goes on under the surface, and this program seems so amazing in that that's where it gets to. It gets to helping kids really develop themselves in who they are, and we need more of that.
We do.
Renee, thank you so much.
Terry, I love you.
This has been so extraordinary, and I knew it would be, and so needed for people to hear and understand what it's like to help create change in young minds, because they're our future.
They are.
So beautifully said. I'm so happy that you took the time to come on and talk about Mighty Minds Academy and what you're doing. Keep doing this amazing work.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I hope this compelling and extraordinary conversation offered you thoughts on how you can create changes in your life. Reviews encourage people to listen to my podcasts. If you loved what you heard, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review. For related content on extraordinary work, please visit my website, trycoaching.com. My next guest is Molly Smith, often called Molly Positive Pants, because of her approach to life with grit and positivity. Molly's life passion is in helping people reach their optimal health and wellness. Learn more about how you too can tackle your problems after hearing Molly's struggling journey. This is an episode you won't want to miss.